I'm going to be honest with you here. Some people trying to play Monster Hunter Wilds right now are having a bad time. A lot of people are experiencing technical issues with Monster Hunter Wilds on PC. The pain is real, and these issues deserve attention. Check out this video right here from probably the most unfortunate soul on the planet. If this doesn't make you cry, I don't know what will. So if you're one of these people having issues like this guy, or even just some overall frame rate issues or texture loading issues, it's important for us to figure out what's really going on, whether it's hardware limitations of your system, driver issues, or game-specific bugs. That's why it's even more important that performance reviews of Monster Hunter Wilds are honest, accurate, and conducted with care. Unfortunately, Digital Foundry's recent quote-unquote review of Monster Hunter Wilds fails on all these fronts. From improper testing conditions to misleading hardware choices, their analysis is not just flawed, it's actively deceptive. And it's causing a backlash brigade of trolls flooding comments and forums from people parroting Digital Foundry's talking points, largely people who haven't even played the game. Just like Digital Foundry hasn't even played the actual game. And all of this is getting in the way of us as a community helping out the people who are excited to play the game and are having trouble doing so. Now, if you're still in disbelief that Digital Foundry could get this so wrong, just keep watching because I'm going to lay it all out for you. The foundation of any credible performance review is proper testing conditions. Unfortunately, Digital Foundry's review of Monster Hunter Wilds fails at the most basic level. The reviewer doesn't even engage with the game properly. Just clicked through the default character creation settings and got to the first place in the game where he could start spinning the camera in circles. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a bit suspicious when people who don't actually play the game start telling me how well or how poorly that game runs. And then at about 4 minutes and 23 seconds into the video, they confidently state, "I'm a performance reviewer. I know what I'm doing." And this is the perfect ironic setup for what transpires over the course of the rest of their video. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments why a knowledgeable performance reviewer would spend almost the entire video showcasing 1440p performance using a 1080p GPU. That's right, the video here predominantly shows the RTX 4060 running Monster Hunter Wilds at 1440p. Now, before you tell me that the 4060 should be able to run 1440p, let me just remind you that Digital Foundry themselves consider the 4060 to be a 1080p card. Their own review of the 4060 benchmarks it at 1080p. You can look at the video for yourself. It spends almost its entire runtime showcasing its performance at 1080p. And for the 4K performance that they showcase, they're not running the card native 4K. They're upscaling from a much lower resolution. So why would a knowledgeable performance reviewer who is part of a team that fully acknowledges and tests the 4060 at 1080p, why would they make such a huge oversight when reviewing Monster Hunter Wilds performance? That's the real question here. And it only gets worse from there. The other GPUs that they chose for testing Monster Hunter Wilds further highlight the problems with Digital Foundry's methodology. For example, they use a 2070 Super, a 6-year-old card that by their own admission does not run modern games as well as it ran games from its own era. Then there's the RX 5700. Another 1080p card from 6 years ago. The entire 5000 series was largely ignored by the gaming market. You haven't even been able to buy one for years. Why are they testing hardware that most gamers don't even use? It gets even worse when they whip out the Intel card. They use an Intel A series GPU instead of the more recent and ridiculously inexpensive B series, which is far more powerful. And with all these cards, they've chosen to test the performance of these 1080p cards using a 1440p resolution. It's ridiculous. Now, I know what you're thinking. They're using upscaling. So it's not actually 1440p, right? Well, that's only half true. And these professional performance testers should know this. They do know this. As you'll see in a minute, if only they'd done their jobs correctly, they would have solved all the issues that they complained about in their video with just one weird trick. As if all that's not enough, Digital Foundry's review also makes unfair comparisons to other games. They compare the performance of Monster Hunter Wilds against The Last of Us Part 2, a 5-year-old game which is essentially an enhanced interactive movie. This comparison is not apropos and doesn't reflect the technical demands of modern open world-like games like Wilds. Not to mention the fact that The Last of Us Part 2 isn't even on the PC platform. So how could they possibly be comparing apples to apples when it doesn't even exist? Now, they also compare it to a game called Forspoken, and this game had its own very well documented performance issues at launch. And again, this game is not at all the same type of game as Monster Hunter Wilds. Perhaps the most damning moment in the review comes when the reviewer admits, quote, "I cannot derive optimal settings at the moment," unquote. Now, if they can't even figure out the optimal settings for running the game, why are they publishing a review? This isn't just incompetence, it's a disservice to their audience. Trusted reviewers like Digital Foundry have a responsibility to provide accurate and reliable information. When they fail to do so, they create unnecessary panic and misinformation. Now, what are the optimal settings for this game right now on PC? I'll tell you, and maybe one of you can let Digital Foundry know, so that they can do a proper analysis of the game. What I've discovered, and what many others have done as well, is to not try to push the limits of your card. Specifically, do not run this game at 1440p on a card that's designed for 1080p. Whether you're upscaling or not, yes, this is a huge point that needs to be made. Monster Hunter Wilds does not run properly at 1440p on lower spec cards. Change your resolution to 1080p. At that point, you can even turn off the upscaling. The game will run better and look better than it does at 1440p upscaled, even if you're using a 1440p display. Now, why does any of this not shock me? Because I've been playing PC games for decades, and there's one thing in life that is more certain than death and taxes, and that is that PC performance at launch will not be fully optimized. Running the game at a reasonable performance level on day one is the rational thing to do. So what all this tells me is that the upscaling implementation in Wilds is a bit undercooked at the moment, and that is what Digital Foundry would have discovered if they'd actually done their jobs correctly. Is this trick going to solve everyone's problem? Of course not. There are still some very weird glitches happening, and there's some bugginess on certain hardware configurations. Yes, even on some AMD configurations. These types of issues are fairly uncommon though, and they will get worked out over time, as they always do. And overall performance will increase over time, at which point you can start experimenting with your settings to squeeze out higher resolutions. While Digital Foundry's review paints a bleak picture of Monster Hunter Wilds, the reality is far more positive. Thousands of players are enjoying the game without any major performance issues. Game runs smoothly for most people, and the current player stats reflect a healthy and engaged community. So why is Digital Foundry's review so out of touch with the actual player experience? Well, the answer lies in the bandwagon effect. Many of the people complaining about terrible performance haven't even played the game. They're simply parroting what they've heard from misleading performance reviews. For people who have actually played the game, a lot of us have noticed that the game runs better the further you get into it. So many people were speculating that the opposite of that would be true, that the best performance they'd see was in a giant empty desert. In reality, the lush forests and caves and the epic battles with elements spewing elder dragons actually run smoother and look far more amazing than the opening scenes of the game. And that alone is why the Digital Foundry performance review is entirely useless, and why it's important for reviewers to actually play through the game before making sweeping pronouncements. As for those of you who are experiencing technical issues with the game, I do feel your pain. Welcome to PC gaming. Capcom and Nvidia will get these issues worked out, but not as a result of anything Digital Foundry has done to help, because they've done the opposite of that. Digital Foundry's review of Monster Hunter Wilds is riddled with flawed methodology, outdated hardware choices, and irrelevant comparisons. It's not just a bad review, it's actively misleading. As gamers, we rely on trusted sources like Digital Foundry to provide accurate and reliable information. When they fail to do so, it undermines their credibility and harms the gaming community. Next time you see a performance review, ask yourself this question. Is this person actually playing the game? Are they using relevant hardware? Don't let misleading reviews like this one ruin your experience. Digital Foundry, if you can't do your job properly, maybe it's time to step back and take stock of what it is you're really trying to accomplish with videos like these.